I know, I'm very proud of you. Is that your own slobber or is that Domino's?
No, not really sure.
Sparky!
Yesterday, I went to put the collar on him, the yellow collar on him.
Yeah.
He was under the table, so probably feeling trapped a little
Sure,
bit.
sure.
I was sitting at the table, and I reached down, and what did he do? He bared his teeth, he growled at me.
Okay, kind of snarled at you a little bit.
Never. I
Okay.
mean, so anyway,
Sure.
this is relatively new, and we've got to figure out what to do about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably what's happening is we're kind of getting into a weird period for him where, again, we're having to enforce rules that he's lived his entire life without really having.
Yeah.
And so that's a very, very tough transition for a dog to go through when they've lived one way for so many years, and now we're changing it all of a sudden. And because, it's, honestly, I think it's rooted in the same insecurity, it's just manifesting differently. So it's like with previously to training, it was manifesting with just chaos, right? Barking and crazy and running around and just like complete nonsense. And now, like you said, he seems more sheepish these days with some things. I think it's just because we're kind of limiting his coping mechanisms that he's like used to performing.
Yeah.
And so
I think you're right.
Yeah, so it's just like he's trying to figure out, okay, like I'm not allowed to run the household anymore. I'm not in charge. And so he's trying to pick at all these other different options to see what's going to work.
And he may be feeling overwhelmed or confused or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I will tell you that my walks with him, I'm having fun on walks.
Yay!
Yesterday we went by, a yappy dog, and I always get a pit in my stomach, like this is no fun.
Yeah.
We go to the side. At one point he started to,
Okay.
and I mean, he really gets it.
Yeah.
We've had good success with the mailman, who's still playing his game, and Sparky barks once, and then he looks at me, and then he goes on to his bed.
Perfect.
So
look at you, bud.
So we led with the negative stuff because I think our dog walker was really concerned.
Sure.
I was a little concerned yesterday.
Sure.
So we have to deal with this somehow.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, and tell me if you disagree, we're seeing great improvement.
Good.
Great improvement.
Good. No, that's really good.
Sure. Well, the resistance to the dog walker behavior started before we started seeing it.
Well, we talked to you about it originally.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't...
No, he was hiding. But so when did that start? He always liked Jackie. Anyway, so
this wasn't necessarily...
He would, if Bob was home, he wouldn't want to leave the house and would stand at the top of the steps and bark.
Okay.
And I would have to coax him down.
Okay.
So that was happening before this.
Oh, okay. So this was happening, like the little signs were happening before even training started.
Yeah, there were certain things that brought us to you.
Sure.
You know what I mean? He was not just the barking, but stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yes, that was happening before. The aggressiveness is really...
So that changes my perspective on it a little bit. That gives us another piece of the puzzle. I think that for a while he's probably been saying like, I'm just not into it. And we've been pushing him to do it.
Yep.
And so he's like, I'm really not into it.
Yeah, now he's really...
And it could be that, he's getting older. He might have some arthritis going on. He might be uncomfortable. He might not, it might just not be as fun for him as it used to be.
I just don't think it is.
And I think that's fine.
People are so nice and they need the money. So we could even keep paying them for a little bit. No, but seriously, they really
Maybe they just come over and hang out with him.
They've been...
I don't think he's into it. I think that he's been telling you that for a while, and because we've continued to kind of force it, he's like, okay, now I'm going to start biting them because I really don't want to. And I think that, is that something that we could like address and change? Sure, but like we don't need to. Again, I think that it's normal as dogs get older that like what they enjoy changes. Like my dog Cash, like he doesn't enjoy long walks as much as he used to because I think he's just uncomfortable. So I've had to shift like what I do with him as activities because I don't want to force him to do something that is painful or uncomfortable for him.
And I am so worried about this summer.
Yeah.
Our first time in this condo and
Yeah.
neighbors.
Exactly.
Are going to be listening for the new. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that, like I said, once the crate gets here, that'll be when we'll really be able to dive into addressing some of the being at home alone type thing.
We're going up there tomorrow, we'll be up there this weekend with them.
Okay.
But without the crate, we will bring the bed with us.
Okay. Okay.
But maybe if we have some clear instructions on what to try.
Sure. Sure. Are there going to be, is he going to be with you most of the time, or are there times you're going to have to leave him there and go out to dinner? Or?
Like, we'll go to the gym tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And nobody's around, so it's a really good time to work on stuff.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think that it would be useful, like, before you leave, a big process when you're leaving, when you have dogs that have anxiety is don't make it a big deal. You know, we've already talked about that. Do some training beforehand. Take him for a walk, do some training, get him a little tired, you know, mentally as well. And then when you do leave, maybe hang outside for like 15 minutes with this. And if you hear him going nuts from outside, just give him a correction. See if that settles him down for a bit, and then you can go. And he might still, you know, act up a little bit while you're gone. And at this point, like you said, nobody else is there, so it's not as big of a deal. But that can start kind of setting some groundwork for us on being able to address it. Come on, buddy. Oh, good job, Mr. Man. All right, so we're going to work on our come command here. I know you got yourself all tangled up, Sparky. There we go. All right. Sparky, come. I'm going to give him a little bit of leash pressure to help him. Get him started. Good. Very nice. My expectation for this come command is that I want him to come to me, stay close enough that I can like easily touch him, and he's got to stay here until we give him that okay to release him.
So it doesn't have to come and sit.
Just come and stay here.
Okay.
Because as you recall, with our walking, we say come as well. So these are kind of, you know, all meeting together in the middle, where come can be used for your walking and for a distance recall, because the end result of what they're doing is the same. They're close to you and they're in your bubble. Okay? Sparky, come. Oh, good job, young man. Look at you. Oh, I know. I can never get these fast enough for you. Never get them fast enough. Good job. And for now, if he starts to wander away too prematurely before he's released, I'm just going to do a little bit of leash pressure to get him back over. I'll start adding in the e-collar in a second. Okay? So far I have not, no. Sparky, come. Good job. That's a good boy. Snacks. Okay. Good boy. Sparky, come. Good job.
Do you need to say his name before the command or no?
Don't necessarily have to. Okay? I kind of tend to think of saying the dog's name almost the kind of in the same instinct of how you would say like a person's name. Like if I haven't addressed someone in a while, I might be like, hey, Paige, so that she knows I'm talking to her and then say something. Versus if we're in a constant conversation, I don't need to keep saying her name every time I say something. So in this context, I don't necessarily have to keep saying his name each time, but say he is off leash with you somewhere, wandering, doing his thing, you might want to say his name first just to help him out. Sparky, come. Good job. You got so worried, you were just laying down. Why'd you get so worried? I know. You got real worried.
Okay, here we go.
Now we're going to do a little bit of leash pressure to just enforce it for right now. A little bit more.
Still no.
Good job. Not yet. Not yet. I want to give him, since this is really difficult for him, good. I want to give him a few repetitions of helping to really make it clear that I expect him to come even though he's sitting next to Dad. Because he clearly knows what the word means to a certain extent because he's doing pretty well with it. So I want to give him a little bit of help and give him the benefit of the doubt in that context before I start including some corrections for it. Okay? Sparky, come. We'll give him a few seconds to mull it over. Now we're going to give him a little bit of help.
You okay with the choke collar?
And again, yeah, this is okay for right now. Good job. I know, you'd rather be over there. Okay. But you guys have clearly done a very good job not feeding into his behaviors because, I mean, this is a drastic improvement from his first week he was here. So, nice work. Sparky, come. He was about to. You're thinking about it. That's my guy. Come here. He said, give me that snack or I'm leaving. There you go. Oh, look at this. This is a big improvement. He didn't even want to go back to him at this point. Sparky, come. Good job. Very nice. Okay. And that's why I do like using the long line for the first week, because had I had him off leash in that moment, I probably could have corrected him to the point that he would have come to me because he understood the command. But I'd rather not put him through an unnecessary amount of stress.
Especially he
initially.
Really reacts to
Yeah. Yeah, and so
it's necessary.
there's certain times where, yes, they need to know what's on the other side of ignoring me, you know, and stuff like that. But in the beginning stages, where he's really just figuring everything out, I like to make it as easy and helpful for him as possible. Sparky, come. What a good job! Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. What a good man. Good boy. Here, you get a double for that one. That was great. Okay. He said, I'm exhausted already. Sparky, come. Good job. Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Oh, that'll be easy.
I know, right? This will be so easy. He'll just follow you around the whole time anyways. There you go. So basically what you're going to do, and I may have used all of his treats. There's only one left. What you're going to do is, even if, you know, in obviously this context, he is going to probably stay very close to you because he just likes you. That's okay. Even if you are calling him from 6 inches away and he comes to you, or if he's already on his way and you say come, that's fine. I'm just worried about getting a lot of repetitions in. So it doesn't really matter the distance that he's recalling from right now. More about just a lot of repetition of him hearing the word and doing the behavior, just to kind of practice it more. Yeah. He said, listen. That's very good. And what's amazing about this and what we've talked about and what you guys have very clearly done a very good job of accomplishing is lowering the level of value that he holds for Sparky. Because that value level that you used to hold was like so overwhelmingly unhealthy for him. It's like obsession level, where it was like, you know, pulling teeth to even get Sparky to walk 2 steps away from him.
But that's Bob. Bob has stopped responding.
No, I know, and he's done clearly he's done a fantastic job, because their whole relationship dynamic is much more healthy at this point. He's doing very well.
Like, I'm surprised he's not just suddenly
Yeah, he's doing very well. Perfect. So now go ahead and say, Sparky, come.
Sparky, come. Good boy.
Oh. So now, because he didn't finish out the full command, say your no, give a tap, and tell him come again.
No. Come. Good boy.
Beautiful. And then after that process, if he hadn't completed it, that's when you'd give a little leash help to help him out. And now you can tell him, okay, and release him.
What do you want me to do?
And just let him walk away from you. Okay. And once he gets a good distance, you can tell him come again.
Sparky, come. No.
Very good. And that was a perfect example where before giving your correction right away, you could have waited just a tad longer.
I was too quick on it.
Yeah, because he was like, I'm coming. Okay, I'm still going to come, you know. Perfect. Oh. Stay where you're at, because he didn't come all the way to you. He did like an in-between you guys thing, right? So go ahead, step all the way back where you were. You were a couple steps further away. Go ahead and do your no, tap, come again. No. Come. Very nice. Very good. Those are the little things that you want to be aware of, you know, because sometimes they'll come like just close enough that you're like, oh, that's probably fine, and you take a step to them. But then over time it becomes now you got to walk 2 steps to them and then 3 steps to them. So we want to make sure that we're really consistent with enforcing that full criteria. And remember, I'm not trying to bombard you with too many things here, that the okay in this context removes his obligation to stay with you, to not stay in that sit. So technically, if you were to say come and then walk away, he has to come with me, right? Even if I stop here and then I wait a couple seconds, if I start moving, he should come with me, right? Because I never released him from it. So that's important to remember. When you tell him okay, you're removing the obligation to stay with you. Very good.
Okay. He's not distracted at all by your dog.
No, he's doing great.
Which is great, but that really speaks more to how well behaved your dog is. Most dogs would go up to Sparky and
don't minimize his success. He's doing good.
You're getting an idea what kind of parent I was.
Yeah, don't, you know, let him have a win here, you know? Because he was interested when I came in.
Yeah.
He walked right over. His ears were all perked up,
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
He had a healthy level of interest. Now he just knows he's got to be focused. Sparky, your mom's tough on you, huh? One more, Sparky. Please. Very nice, bud.
The biggest goal for her is that is able to be in a situation and where if a dog is coming off leash, is able to not feel like she has to resource guard either the mom or her personal space or her, right? So I think it's something that what we've been trying to work on is obviously getting her in a very structured command where we are giving her that personal space and advocating that space for her so that in the case a dog, whether on leash or off leash, interferes or comes into that personal space, she knows that because of the criteria that she's in, she doesn't feel obligated to react like she used to, and instead almost just like maintain the space and allow me or, in this case, her mom to advocate for her appropriately. I think that's, whether it's fear aggression or resource guarding, a lot of times where we see that like leash aggression and stuff. So I think being able to kind of have that control and that mindset for her to have is going to be the most important thing.
It's for a focus more than anything, a refocus.
It's, I guess my mindset of having a structured kind of like command is that it's not that they don't know what's going on around them. I don't mind if a dog is observant and is aware of that squirrel running around or that dog coming up to them and that jogger going by. It's more of what having them kind of have the ball in their court of making them choose whether they want to do what they want to do or what I'm asking them to do, right? You can go and be reactive at that squirrel and that jogger and that dog, but there are going to be consequences to it. So it's not really the sense of I'm requiring, or like I absolutely need you focused on this one thing, and if you do anything, like if you are not focused on this one thing that I'm asking you to do, there will be consequences. It's more of have an understanding of what I'm asking you to do, and within like reason of that, don't be doing anything of the extreme on the outside, if that makes sense. So, like I don't require them to be, some trainers require focus on the owner, right? Like the dog has to be looking at me the whole time. That's more what I'm saying is I don't need that. I need them to understand what the criteria is of the command, right? Is that there is this bubble of personal space and that the dog is to maintain the space within there with me, and anything outside of that, there's a consequence of going outside of that space because of the interferences coming into it. I want her to know that whether there's things outside or inside, this is the space you need to be, right? So that's more of the only really focus I have.
It's more even so scenario based.
I see what you're asking. So yeah, in this situation, most of the time, I try to just get out of the situation as much as possible, right? Especially is if does end up being reactive because the dog comes into that personal space. If the dog is not interfering in the personal space or in that bubble, right, then it's something that, yeah, I would like to just keep going, not make a scene any bigger than it has to be, and just reinforcing that criteria as we go, right? Because again, she should know that nothing should be coming in because I'm advocating for her, right? Whether I have to move that space outside of range for the dog not to be able to lunge, or whether I need to use my tools of, the spray or, physical force to stop a dog from coming in and attacking my dog. Now, in the sense of, having that understanding of situational, it's I don't know, I think that having the dog both on leash, we're able to make it a little bit easier just to walk away, right? That person has their dog, maybe it's a little tug or whatever, but you're clearly able to keep going. I think it's a little bit harder in this situation of a dog coming into your space, whether it's excitement or whether it's aggression. Again, we're focused on the dog, our dog that we're training, that's in training. So it's, I guess I think I would take it that any dog coming into that personal space, I'm just assuming is going to be mean, right? I'm just assuming is going to do something to rile my dog up, right? And sometimes in those situations, the worst thing for us to do is to get really tense and nervous as well, right? And it's very hard to do so because, again, you don't know if that dog's coming for you. You don't know if that dog's coming for your dog. So Michelle was saying, like, the other day that it's something that having that clear understanding from the other owner of you need to get over here and control your dog, right? Because I'm trying to do the same thing. Yeah. And so, again, advocating for her, but that person needs to get over here and get over here fast before I start putting consequences into that other dog as well, right? Yeah. And trying to do it in a calm manner, right? And if you do get a chance to be able to create safe distance, fine, whatever. Now, in those situations that you'd brought up too, say the dog doesn't do perfect. Say the dog does get reactive anyways, and because a dog is coming into that personal space, right? That is something that in the moment, we need to just kind of getting that dog under control. And if your dog does have a good understanding of the come command and everything like that, we should be able to use our tools to get them at least off, right? Whether it's a correction and put into, a distance or in a down or whatever it may be. The other dog is the one I'm going to have to really kind of pull up, right? Because at this point, I should have control if I'm forcing my dog into a situation where I'm going to a park or something like that, right? Like at the board and trains, I like to do all the teaching first and then put them into those situations because I feel confident that they can handle those situations, right? If an off-leash dog goes in there, I'm going to be able to handle it, right? And expect that I get that dog scared the shit out of you and you're scared or riled up or whatever, but you need to snap out and you need to focus back on me and what I'm asking you to do, right? I got this dog. Again, I'm advocating. I'm moving it from you. I'm yelling at this owner to come get their dog right now, but I need you to snap out of it and get focused in what we were working before, right?
Yeah.
Before this whole thing happened.
Or what would you tell somebody as a dog trainer what they should preemptively do before going into that situation? If they can do things before actually being in that scenario.
I would say absolutely work on yourself as well as your dog in lower stress situations, right? As much as the dog can get scared and frustrated and reactive, the owners can as well. It takes one time for a dog to lunge at a dog or to get in a fight with a dog, and now that owner is too scared to even walk their dog, right? If the owner is too uncomfortable or nervous to walk a dog at the park because they're scared the first dog they see, your dog's just going to go at them or something, then you clearly aren't ready and confident to do that situation, and neither is probably your dog, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing is, even if you live in a community or a neighborhood or something where there's all these off-leash dogs or whatever, drive 15, 20 minutes in any direction. Go and find a tennis court or find a baseball field, somewhere that's you have some room to kind of move around in, and most places you're going to be able to find something like that, and trying to lower the stimulation and increase the focus on the communication between your dog to build confidence and understanding and respect and trust between you and your dog is what really needs to be like the ground level kind of idea, I think, when teaching and starting to train your dog. And once you build that up, all those little things up, then it's like, okay, we've slowly checked all these boxes leading up to this point. Now it's game time. Now it's like we've passed through squirrels and worked on the reactivity. We've gone maybe through some walking already where there's been joggers or other dogs, puppies, hyper puppies and reactive dogs maybe that we see every once in a while on a hike down in the metro parks or something, right? Now it's like, okay, now we can start working around our neighborhood, maybe going to the end of the street and back or whatever, right? And it's something that if you see that first dog and you go, oh, I'm not ready, then don't force it. I think a lot of people, they try to push their dog a little too soon sometimes, where they look back at it and they're like, well, I was kind of nervous going into that when I saw that dog and I figured something was going to happen, but I just wasn't sure. It's like, if you're not 100% confident, I just don't see why people would push it. If you're having all this increasing progress, don't let one stupid mistake do something where it's going to affect you or that dog again, Generally, I would say take it slow and don't push it too fast, but if you can't do it, then maybe you're going to have to try to find other ways to work around things, right? Whether you're walking up and you're advocating very vocally with your dogs. Michelle was even talking about, like, if certain neighbors have dogs that are always off leash. She was talking about a dog that was always in the front yard off leash with Lumos. she just went up and asked him. She just said, hey, you know, do you mind having your dog in the backyard or on a leash or something, because my dog isn't as good as yours, you know? And you can even kind of like cheese it up a little bit for him, but it's something where, again, it's all about trying to do everything you can for your dog's safety and for, obviously, the other dog's safeties as well, right? Especially if you know your dog is kind of the issue, you know, in terms of aggression. So I think work on it if you can in lower stimulations and build up to it if possible. But if it's not possible, then you're going to have to find other ways. You're going to have to speak louder for your dog and for yourself, and just try to have a little bit more control, you know, with those situations.
I love you too. But you did pretty good this week? No issues, anything? Or?
Yeah, we're all good.
Cool, perfect. I figured what we could do is, you want to do like more socializing with him today?
Yeah.
Kind of build off of what we did last time? Because you did so good.
Yeah, really good.
Can we put on your party hat? I know, buddy. Your friend Domino's here again today. He is. I was excited that he was here again, so I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's his dude.
All right. Perfect. Oh yeah, way better. I mean, all this stuff going on, like this would have been, remember that first time we brought him in here?
Oh, yeah.
He had a hard time. I always wonder, like, how much do we think they, like, remember each other?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, I wish I could know. Like, are they like, oh my gosh, I know you? Or is he like, wait, you're slightly familiar. Smell the same. There you go, bud. Uh-huh. He said, zoom! Chest bump! So awesome, man. Shadow's a new man now.
It really is, like, insane how carefree he is now.
Yeah.
Like, we can do anything. We go in the backyard, just run around, and I'm not really worried about it. Like,
The process that you might be able to use, like when introducing him to new dogs, is just what we've been doing, just kind of starting him on muzzle, letting him kind of feel out the situation, see how they do. If, you know, all signs seem clear, then you can kind of take it off then at that point.
when do you think, I mean, obviously with the muzzle and stuff, but when do you think
Sure.
it'd be good to, like, introduce some other dogs?
Yeah, I was thinking like today we'd start him off with a dog I knew he'd do pretty well with, and then maybe we'll bring out some other ones that are like different personality types. I'll muzzle him back up each time and just see how he does with that. Because Domino's a pretty like carefree guy where he doesn't take much personally. So like he's definitely not the type that's going to give like a big correction back for behavior he doesn't like, or you know, things like that. So that's a good starter dog for him to like kind of get comfortable with, you know. But I think it would be good to put him with some dogs that maybe want him to tone it down a little bit, not be too crazy, and it'll be good to see how he responds to that. Because that's where some dogs will have the issue, is like if a dog communicates like, hey, it's a little bit too much, back off please. Especially if they're like Shadow, or he's coming from more of like a fearful place with other dogs. Sometimes that can trigger them and they're like, oh, now we're fighting, you know, and they overreact to it. So that could be a good thing to test him out for. And this is such like a perfect example of how like sometimes it can be very dog specific for dogs, you know, on whether they're going to vibe or not vibe. So that was good though, because the dog kind of finally called him out on his, you know, what he was doing. His cheap shots. I didn't correct any of them. I like that Waffles kind of called him out, because he was like going out of his way to kind of be a little bit of a bully, you know, and then Waffles stood his ground and he was like, oh, I guess that isn't tolerated. And then, you know, I much would rather dogs set boundaries with other dogs that way, in an appropriate way, than me do it, because obviously they're way more effective in their own communication than we could ever try to be. So, but of course it's important to use dogs that you know are like going to be okay doing that, you know. I wouldn't want to use a dog that maybe would respond, that has a temperament that would respond to him doing that with like, okay, now we are fighting. You know, a dog with a more even temperament but still firm and willing to stand up for himself is like a Waffles type. Whereas Domino would have just been like, whatever, man, and then just like started bouncing around. So. It's always so fascinating to me that like one dog can be such a non-issue and then the other one they're like, for some reason, not that one.
Does that ever change?
Depending, yeah. Sometimes it just takes dogs a little bit longer to kind of adjust and get used to being around each other. Some dogs, dependent on kind of their personalities, just typically won't do well together long term. It's just more of a management situation. All right, so on a scale of Domino to Waffles, seems Chance is kind of in the middle. And how he's being received by Shadow. Not quite exciting, not quite threatening. This is better. Something about Waffles, man. And like with this dynamic of like two dogs playing and more high energy and stuff, like it's, some of the interactions he had were pretty good. Some of them were still a little bit more like control-y over like Chance, like the couple times he like, you know, snapped at him and stuff like that. But what's nice is that because like we're using the muzzle with him, we can just kind of let him play that stuff out. And let him figure it out, because in that moment, like, it's not like he's intending to do like a lot of harm. He's just like, everyone stop, you know, trying to control all the energy and stuff. So it's good to be able to let him kind of play that out, figure out that he doesn't really need to do that. Everything's going to be fine, and let him see where he goes from there. Yeah, I think it's good for him. It'll probably be a good tool for you to use for a while. I think that maybe doing some continued like daycare stuff with him here, if you know you're open to it, might be good for him to just keep expanding, like, you know, how many dogs he's interacted with. And then of course, like with some select dogs that you feel comfortable with, of like your friends, if you wanted to introduce him, you could, and just start it with the muzzle and just see how he does. So I think he's certainly at a point where like he can start meeting dogs. Just got to take precautions to make sure it goes as well as possible. Of course, a big key to that is being off leash. If you need to, typically, ideally, it's best to do it on like a neutral area for both dogs. So whether that's available to you guys or not, but because if they're on leashes, it just adds a whole lot of tension and restriction that isn't going to work very well, especially for a guy like him. I still think, even with how he's done today with Waffles, like, I mean, this is still a huge, huge improvement. It's just like once they get to this point, it's almost like hard to remember how like rough it was in the beginning.
It was really hard. Like I said, I lived by school and people couldn't even, like, little kids couldn't walk by.
Wow.
Without him going absolutely nuts, so.
Come a long way, young man.
Yep.
So I think he's done super, super well. Are you happy with everything?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.